Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Mr. and Lady viewing at home, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for checking out. And thank you for joining me, your hostess with the mostest germ, on another wonderful edition of Kinetic Aesthetic. Now, on this Friday episode, speaking of which, I hope you're all having a beautiful Friday and I hope that your weekend goes even better. The topic that I wanted to talk about today, that I wanted to just spend a little bit of time yapping to you all about, is comedian, entertainer, actor, whatever the fuck he likes to call himself, Kevin Hart, and his whole roast and the reaction to backlash and the controversy surrounding all of it. Now, a little over a week ago, I don't know exactly when it came out, it might have been 2 weeks ago, Kevin Hart dropped his roast. It's on Netflix, and it was controversial. It's always the case with the roast. There's always going to be some very emotionally charged, some very mean-spirited, just some awful things that are said. And normally, in the context of a roast, people will just look past it, be like, okay, that was just something that was said. But because of the cultural powder keg that we live in right now, because of how tensions are and how everything is just such a culture war topic, there were 2 instances during this roast that really started to initiate conversation. I really just had a lot of people going, and those are the instances surrounding the comedian Shane Gillis. I don't know nothing about him other than I think he's always at roast. This is pretty much his livelihood, is just doing roast. And Tony Hinchcliffe. I don't know if I pronounced that guy's name right. It's like the Kill Tony nigga. All I know about him is the WWE started working with him last year. I don't know these 2 comedians in particular. I know Kevin Hart. And so Kevin Hart, for this roast, he was the executive producer. He was one of the people in charge of everything and all being put together. So he had a hand in these 2 being selected for this. But they made some very offensive, very just damn jokes during their sets. Shane Gillis made a joke saying something along the lines of, in order to lynch Kevin Hart, you would need a bonsai tree. And then you've got fucking Tony Hinchcliffe, who was going out there and making jokes about George Floyd, saying something about him looking up from hell. So basically, you've got these 2 guys who are going out there just trying to, and they're both white, who went up there, who just said some racist shit. And, if this was anybody else, if this was like just a Latino person, an Asian person, anybody other than a white person, I wouldn't have even really given it a second thought, me personally. But it caused controversy, not just because they're white, but just because those are still touchy subjects. And we've already had other comedians who were there, Chelsea Handler, come out, demean them, talk down, which started the discourse and everything like that. But now we've had Kevin Hart himself come out, and that is really where the controversy starts, or where I really started to take note of it, because Kevin Hart's whole reaction to it was notable. When he went on The Breakfast Club, that was the one reaction that I saw. I think he's been to some other podcasts, but he's been saying similar things. His way of framing it was, number one, it's a roast, which, like I said already, it's a roast. Mean-spirited things are said. People are going to be saying awful shit that they really usually wouldn't say any other time. And number 2, it's that, what are you expecting him to do to disrupt the production? Why was anybody expecting him to go up there and just do some Will Smith shit and smack the guy or anything like that? He doesn't understand why anybody is really trying to hold him accountable in this situation. And that in itself is sort of the first real big problem I have with it. Because, listen, I had already known, just based off of what I had heard about this guy, Tony Hinchcliffe, a year before, that he was probably not the type of comedian that I would be into. He gives off he's a MAGA comedian. I'll put it to you that way. He definitely is somebody who's trying to appeal to that side, to that crowd, to that edginess. I'm just going to say some just like, not even just mean-spirited, some just like real unnecessary shit just to get a reaction. And to some people that's funny, to some people that is entertaining. To me, that's not my cup of tea. I don't want to hear anybody who's going to be going out of their way to piss off an entire demographic, to just be making jokes about trans people and things like that. punching down. I'm not into that. It's why I've stopped really fucking with Dave Chappelle as much ever since he had his whole specials. And it's also this whole idea that Kevin Hart tried to push that, you know, he had no say in the matter. He doesn't expect anything different from Tony. And my thing is, okay, if you expected that, then why would you put him on there? Why would you do all that? Why is it that you are trying to act like you weren't an executive producer who had the opportunity to not have this guy there? To not put yourself in this position where you're going to have to sit up there on camera laughing at jokes about George Floyd being in hell, laughing at jokes about you being lynched. It's just sort of like, it's just, and I get it, and I'm just going to get this out of the way. The reason why Kevin Hart is doing all this is not just cooning for the sake of cooning. He's cooning because he's trying to get himself further ingratiated into different demographics and different audiences, because he's trying to become what Tyler Perry is to the, I guess, the drama or the drama side of Hollywood to the comedic side. He's trying to become an entity that is so big outside of the Hollywood machine that they can't stop him by just not being involved with him. He's trying to become unblackballable, basically. He wants to be the next Tyler Perry. And I get that. I admire that and I respect that, even though I don't agree with the tactics that either one of them would have used to get there. I admire that ambition, because it's very difficult to do that just being a person of color in this in the entertainment industry. With all that being said, though, you have to just, there's no really way of looking at this any other different way. It's just that you were just up there cooning it up. Like, when you are sitting there laughing at the jokes that this man was laughing at, when you're just sitting there giving certain things a pass, there's no other way that I can look at it, that I can look at you. And the one thing that really drives it all home for me was me, while I'm doing research for this episode, discovering that they had actually already edited jokes out of the version that aired on Netflix. It was not live, it was already pre-recorded, and they edited out jokes that were made about President Trump, that were made about Melania Trump. They went out of their way to pacify this version so that right-wing motherfuckers, leaning people, or conservatives would be able to watch this and not get offended, not have any, what the fuck was that type moment. But you leave it in for black people, you leave it in for people on the left, you leave it in shit like that. And that is the issue that I have with this whole sort of idea that he has, that he's not responsible, that nobody should be trying to hold him accountable. What the fuck? Like, what the fuck you looking at me for? Because you knew what you were doing, Kevin. Because at the end of the day, you had a choice as to whether or not you wanted to, you know, piss off both sides or just piss off one side, and you chose the one side. And maybe it's because you have this idea that people on the left can take it more, that they are going to be the type who are just going to further push people to watch your shit. And actually, that makes a lot of sense. You know, Kevin Hart being a black comedian and everything like that, I can already imagine there's a lot of conservatives who probably wouldn't want to check him out for a lot of reasons. So what better way than to sort of get them to give you a look or to check your shit out than to include a couple of really right-wing MAGA adjacent comedians who are going to get out there and say some offensive shit that's going to piss people off, and then get those same conservatives to be like, oh damn, I guess they're really pissing off the libs, and then get them to go check it out. That literally might have been the whole angle, because, you know, it's like an old wrestling promoter once said, controversy creates cash. And I can almost, now I'm thinking about it, I can almost guarantee that roast has probably gotten a little bit more successful since these controversies have kicked off in comparison to when it first started. So that makes sense. I guess I understand why you would include all that in. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's still just coon shit. You're still just putting on the raccoon suit and you're just going out and you're running around. So that is sort of why I've never liked Kevin Hart, because I've always seen through that. I've always seen that at the end of the day, Kevin Hart is somebody who is going to choose himself, choose his brand, and choose money over the culture, over his own people. I didn't see it in Dave Chappelle when I was young. I didn't sort of see that side of him and him becoming what he became after all these Netflix specials and all this shit of him going to Radaya and all that other crap. But I was able to clock it with Kevin Hart almost immediately. Yes, he was talented. Yes, he was funny. But just like Dave Chappelle and just like Chris Rock, he's just somebody who has just shown that he is really willing to just sell us all up a boat, sell us all on a boat up a river if it means it's going to get him further ahead. And I'm not telling you to dislike Kevin Hart. I'm not telling anybody to not fuck with him, but understand that that's the type of man that he is. You know, that's the type of guy that he is. He doesn't really have integrity. He doesn't really seem to have morals. He calls himself a Christian, yet doesn't behave as it, doesn't behave like that. This is a guy that cheated on his wife while she was pregnant with his child. Kevin Hart is a piece of shit. So don't be surprised when he does piece of shit things, such as supporting motherfuckers who are going out here making these terrible jokes, such as just being the type of guy that he is. And with all that being said, I don't really think that Kevin Hart is, I don't necessarily think that he's all that great, or at least not great enough to where people should be just giving him a pass on anything like this. There comes a certain point where you are just overdoing your part, where you are sort of, the bullshit outweighs the talent. And for me, this is sort of getting close to that point with Kevin Hart. We're just at a different point in the world right now where I'm just not trying to hear, and I'm not trying to like hear anything from somebody like Kevin Hart, who's going on. This is a guy that's hosted the BET Awards, who's literally, so much of his early success and what got him to the point where he could be put up in this position to be given access to these rooms, to these different high-level executives, to all of the success that he's trying to get to aim for. A lot of what put him in that position to even get there was based off of our support and our fucking admiration of him. So for him to just get to a point where he's willing to just sit there and laugh and kiki while jokes about lynchings, while jokes about George Floyd are made, I don't really got no patience for that shit, and I don't really got no grace for it. Fuck Kevin Hart. Fuck Dave Chappelle. Fuck these comedians. And honestly, it's really just fuck a lot of these comedians, because I'm telling y'all right now, it's been them, especially a lot, that I've really started to think about as I just sit here now and I put it in my head, who have just time and time again just disappointed us. Just wholeheartedly, completely just disappointed us with no type of fucking apology down the line or anything like that. The only real nigga in the comedic world that I can really think of that's held it down the entire time, the entire course of their career, Cat Williams, Bernie Mac, R.I.P. Bernie Mac, and D.L. Hughley. I'll give D.L. Hughley his credit. Outside of those three, I've seen all these niggas just do some real flaw, some real suspect shit at one point or another. Steve Harvey with his whole shtick of like respectability politics. Bill Cosby does not need to get talked about. It's the list goes on and on. These fucking comedy niggas are the ones that we really need to keep our eyes on and really need to watch. Like, be careful when you start supporting these niggas or start to give them too much credit, because these niggas will always disappoint us, and they will always just do some fuck shit sooner rather than later. But, you know, I'm keeping my eyes on you, Drewski. I feel like Drewski's already done something that I can't think of right now, and if he hasn't, he's probably going to do it soon. But with all that being said, this has been Kinetic Aesthetic. I am going to just let y'all go now before I go into a whole rant, because this started off as me just wanting to talk about Kevin Hart and his fuck shit, and now I'm starting to realize Black comedians have a very strong tendency to just let us down and do some fuck shit. And I think that might be another episode that I'm going to have to get ready for another time. But y'all have a good rest of your day. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I'll catch y'all on Monday, because we're going to be talking about Adrian Bronner and all the crazy fuck shit he's got going on. But it's your Kinetic Aesthetic. It's been your boy Germ. I'm out.